Hey, howdy. Well, I'm back. I'm back at campus. And I've also been busy. Yes, I know some of these sprites look like ass. I kind of just threw together the sprites so that there's a vague idea of what they do. But I think this mod is in a state where I'm willing to release a stable version and see what people think of it, see if I can get some potential playtesting and actually roll out some bug fixes. I think I did a decent job at ironing out most of the bugs, but there's absolutely stuff I missed. Like, without question, there's a lot of stuff I missed. But first off, the cool thing. Ba-boom! I spruced up the Ennui menu in a big way. And it still has that cool fade-in effect, but I've made some other changes as well, particularly with regards to balance. This character is... There's a comment that mentioned this. This character is really hard to balance well, because there's sort of this dance between having so many options at your disposal, while also not really being able to use all those options, or, well, in my case, hyperfixating on specific options and getting yourself killed because of it. It's kind of a similar sort of issue as the Artifact of Command and Risk of Rain. On paper, it's incredibly strong, but I find, at least for myself, that I tend to hyperfixate on specific builds and specific ways of playing, and I lack any defensive power, or I lack the ability to handle certain situations, and I just fall on my ass. So I'm actually really happy that it turned out that way, because it plays into the theme of the character. Like, think about it. This entire character is ennui, and, like, succumbing to listlessness and sin, and the way that you play the character is by beating that, and fighting through, and using moderation to your advantage to maximize the benefits of the character, without going too far off the deep end and getting yourself killed. But with that, let's move on to the items, because there are some cool items here. I'm quite proud of some of these effects. Others not so much, but we'll get into that. So, and I'm going to be resetting the game a couple of times, but I just wanted to show off, because these are all the items. They're not unlockable because the unlock API was being a massive hassle to work with. It's no fault to the people who made the API, I'm just bad at using it because it's my first time. But they're all unlocked from the start. But starting with the first one, you might recognize this, actually. It's the Mark of Pride. It's just like a simple... It's range, shot speed, and a bone heart. Actually, I happen to think this is actually a very good item, but it is a little bit boring. Speaking of boss items, like this, Mark of Pride is a boss item, this item right here is a boss item, and what's the other one? Pickled Ginger down there is also a boss item. Next up is Psychedelic Breakfast, which is a Pink Floyd reference, funnily enough. It's regular breakfast, but it gives you 3 heart containers, and also activates Wavy Cap 5 times, so it gives you a good benefit, but you're gonna struggle a little bit if you're not used to, Wavy Cap being Wavy Cap. Let's get rid of that visual effect and move on to something a little bit more interesting. Octanol. So, to give a bit of an explanation for this effect, because it is a bit like, what the hell am I looking at? Octanol is a chemical compound. The full name is 1-octen-3-ol. If you've ever seen Nile Red's like chemistry videos, you might have heard the name before. It's an insect attractant. So, let me see if I can get it to happen without any luck boosts. I'm just going to spawn at a bunch of flies and see if it works. There we go. So, whenever you kill enemies, there is a random chance that they spawn flies. And these flies are a little bit faster, a little bit beefier. And they're not incredibly strong. I'm just sicking these on regular old black flies. But, like, that's pretty good. Like, that's very strong. and the chance is boosted with luck. So this could very quickly just become, you know, the swarm, that item, the swarm, but actually cool and interesting. Though do bear in mind, like, because it is a charmed enemy, the health carries over between rooms, so it's not as strong as you might think it is. Moving on from that, let me check my list, see what's next. Ah yes, another reference item. Flower petals. And this is another one where the reference might not come immediately, but this is a reference to a certain thing from Lisa the Painful that I'm not going to spoil in case anyone has not played that game, but all I'm going to say is that I have a video on the channel called, I think it's just called Marty Mountain, where I play through the entire section of the game where this reference is relevant. So I recommend playing through that, but, you know, be warned of the usual content warnings that are associated with Lisa. If you're able to stomach it, though, you should play Lisa. It's really good. Anyway, the actual item. So you notice when I picked it up, it gave me a familiar for free. And let me give myself another familiar, actually, because when I cleared the room, it despawned the little haunt. The way that this works is that when you take lethal damage, if you have a familiar, and that is, if you have a familiar item, so if you have Lilith, it's not just going to strip you of your incubus, but if you have a familiar in item form, it'll prevent that damage and remove it from your person. And it will do that as long as you have familiars. So this item is actually really, really strong in very specific situations. Like suppose that you have multiple copies of a bunch of useless familiars. It gives you an incentive to pick up devil deals that may not be that useful at first glance. I happen to think it's a very, very interesting item. Next on the list is a more boring one, but more interesting in what it is than what it does. The Book of Enoch. So, I don't know the Bible very well, but I looked it up because the word came up. It's called like an acrocryphic, or like an acrocryphic verse. It's a passage of the Bible that was retconned out of the common verses that people read. It's where Nephilim come from. So that's what the description is referencing, that there might be giants. It's a cheeky reference to the band, but it's also the Book of Enoch is about, the two things that I know about it is Enoch, the guy who is technically the oldest man in the Bible, even more so than Methuselah because he didn't die. It's just when he was close to death, God was like, "Yo, I got you," and just brought him up to heaven so he could live forever. And it also talks about half human, half angels called Nephilim. And it's referenced a lot in, like, I'm pretty sure it's referenced a lot in, like, Shin Megami Tensei and a lot of, like, JRPGs. But the effect is super simple. It heals you for a full heart, and then it gives you a bone heart. I happen to think this item is really, really good. Because, you know, it's repentance. HP's hard to come by. And having that on a 6-room cooldown can stack up very, very quickly. But it's not super, super interesting. I might do a Book of Revelations thing and add on a cool secondary effect to make it more interesting. Because the Satanic Bible also has that now. Next up is my favorite item. Ignore the fact that there's 2 of these. This item, I shamelessly pillaged this item from the kitchen sink, which is another mod that I did ages and ages ago, because I happen to think this item is really cool, and it alone deserves more people to know about it, because I think it is awesome. So, what this item does is it adds a new tier effect that whenever your tiers hit enemies, there is a small chance that it activates your active item and drains a charge from it. So, let's just pull out a dummy and put that down. There we go. And the more charges are on the active item, obviously the more times you would get to activate this effect. before running out of charges completely, but the chance is also a lot lower. So let me, like... The ideal build with this would be something like soy milk, and then you get a lot of luck. I'm just gonna get myself 1 evil charm, because that's probably plenty. Nah, 2. 2, 2, 2. And let me give myself something like the Book of Sin, for instance. Or, hell, the Book of Enoch. You can kind of see how this could be really, really strong. It's like 4.5 volt. In the right situation, you become basically immortal. But it's difficult to... You kind of have to build around it. It's one of those. But I adore this item. I'm very proud of it. I think it's super, super cool. Anyway. Now into something a little bit more boring. Compound interest. On pickup, it gives you 5 coins. This is a shop item, by the way. So you would pay 15 cents for it, or you'd pay 7 cents, and you get 5 coins back. Additionally, every time you go down to the next floor, you get, I believe, a 20%... You get a 20% return on your money, rounded down. And I might change that to round it up so that it's a little bit more interesting. Because right now, if you have less than 5 cents, it does literally nothing when you switch floors, which feels a little bad. So I might make that give you 1 coin at minimum, or like make it the ceiling instead of the floor. That will probably feel way better. But the strategy with this is that, like, suppose it's a quarter, right? You have like 50, 55 cents. If I were to go down to the next floor with that much money, it's really, really powerful. That is a lot of money to get for free, and it does this every single floor. Now, granted, you know, after a certain point, money stops being important, but with things like deep pockets and money equals power, there's definitely a place for this item. I sound like a marketing major describing this, but, I mean, of all the things, it's a good... Oh, the sprite for this is still broken. Ah. I gotta fix the sprite for this before I upload this. This is the pickled penny. I'm just using this as a placeholder sprite. And I was going to swap out the sprites, and then I forgot. So I'll have to do that later. Anyway. Pickled penny. It's like butt penny. Whenever you pick up coins, you get a salt trail. And it lasts for, hang on, just do like 5. Lasts for roughly 5 seconds? Maybe closer to 10 seconds off of 5 coins. And it persists between rooms, and if you have something like IV bag, this is not permanent, but it lasts for a super long time if you just keep picking up coins over and over again. Moving over into one of the more silly items, let me just restart. So that it's a bit more clear that it's just the item doing this. Lusty Gust. As you approach enemies, you get a scaling damage boost, a scaling speed boost and tier rate boost. And the more enemies are near you, the higher the stat gets. Don't mind the vine boom. So it actually decays over time the more enemies you kill, when you really think about it. But against bosses like Hush, who spawn a ton of enemies that remain invincible for a good amount of time, this is going to give you a lot of stats. And Ultra Greed, too. A lot of the Afterbirth bosses just get completely schmucked by this. Next up, we have Cornucopia. This is a fun item. It's kind of a... I don't know how best to describe it. But you might notice it does no charge at all. And if I were to use it, let me damage myself real fast. and then I use it, it heals 1 heart for completely free, and I can use it anytime I want, but every time I use it, it reduces my speed by 0.1. And this will continue until I hit 0.1 speed, at which point it will stop healing me completely. Now the question is, why the hell would you want that? That sounds terrible. Well, consider this. There's a lot of situations where you either have more than 2 speed, or you really don't need more than like 1.5 speed for most situations. That's usually more than enough to dodge basically anything. And from boss rewards and speed up pills, you can essentially trade speed for health. So there are situations where it's useful, but it's designed to be kind of a weak item. But it's an interesting kind of weak, so I feel like it's okay. Next up is an item that is really goofy, and also has a similarly goofy sprite, Pickled Ginger. When you pick it up, it will remove all of your costumes, and it has a secondary effect. The next time you pick up any kind of item that isn't an active item, it'll double it. And you just have 2 of them now. If it's just the next item that you pick up, Pickled Ginger will turn into a copy of it. So that's really strong for a lot of reasons. You could get something like Brimstone or Mom's Knife, where the effect is stackable. You could get something like a stat boost, like the Sad Onion or My Reflection. Would be ridiculous if you got it twice. Roid Rage, Magic Mushroom. There's a lot of potential, but the other side of the coin is that it is the next item you pick up. So it's very situational for when it can actually pop off, but it can still pop off, and it appears in boss rooms, so it will be appearing quite often. Next up, oh yes. This is the this is okay. So first off, this is kind of a meta joke. I really liked the idea. Every single one of these, past I think just the ones that are jokes off of Ginger, are references to different sins. Like the Mark of Pride is for pride, Octanol is for envy because Beelzebub, Compound Interest is greed, Lusty Gust is lust, Cornucopia is gluttony, and this is sloth. And I thought to myself, well, it would be really funny if the item for sloth was just a reskin of another item. So this is Sloth's Sack. And ironically enough, it also has one of the most intricate and cool effects in the whole mod. So, when enemies get close to me, oh, it's kind of broken on my on the Gaper costumes. But look at that. That is like, this effect looks so, it looks so cool, man. It looks so freaking cool. So, let me find, what is an enemy that fires a lot of tears? A soy creep. So, when tears get close to you, they slow down to an absolute crawl, and this applies to enemies as well. And you can kind of just use this to strafe around bullets, and it works in a similar sort of way as the soul, where it doesn't pulse, but it does keep enemies from getting too close to you. And also that visual effect. That is not a custom graphic, by the way. That is just the smoke particle from the little horn smoke balls. I just screwed around with the color on it, and when the color got over one, it did that, and that is literally one of the coolest things I've ever seen in this game. Makes me weirdly nostalgic. I don't know for what era. But the last item is Kind of a goofy one. Kane's other eye patch. And again, sadly, there is no costume right now, but I will be adding a costume in the future. But you might notice, it gives you a sizable damage up, 2.5 damage. And it also adds random spread to Isaac's tears. And just for the record, Kane's other eye patch is the item stand-in for Wrath, which, you know, that would make sense. But just as a last thing, just for the hell of it, it has synergy with lasers, like Brimstone. Come on, do one that. There we go. It has synergy with Brimstone. It has synergy with bombs as well. There you go. Took it a second. But yeah, I think that is basically everything. Last thing I want to show is just, you know, like a general showcase of this is what Ennui looks like now. I think it's really cool. I added some more effects to Envy. I made it so that while you're playing as a specific sin, you can't get charge on the wheel for that character. So you might have noticed it before, but while it was Lust, it just stays completely pitch black and it will not charge until I swap to a different character. Something that I was noticing was that in a lot of situations you could just hot swap from Lust to base form Ennui and then right back to Lust because it had already charged while you were playing as Lust. So you just do one. You could just be as Lust and just do 1-2 and immediately get all the benefit of Lust and also cut your miasma in half. So that was fixed. Agreed that there was a typo. I ended up fixing that typo. I think I made it so that I removed the 999 damage from Wrath. Now it just does an extra full heart if it hits you. Added more effects to Envy. It's cool. This is a cool mod. Very happy with how it's been turning out. I might take a break for now because classes are going to start literally tomorrow. But who knows? If you're interested in seeing more regarding this project and other weird, stupid projects that I work on in the future, I mean, you know, beyond the obvious of just enjoy the mods that I make. I work hard on them. I think they're cool. Consider donating to my Ko-Fi because, you know, why not? I don't know what universe coffee still costs $1, but I mean, if you want to throw $1 my way for some number 2 pencils or something, I'd be happy to take it. Yeah, and the stat down is actually implemented now. And how this is going to work is the old Ennui version that was just like a character test is going to get delisted, and I'm going to relist this as the definitive version and update this from here on in. But that's all I got for now. Thanks so much for watching.